Welcome to Mishna study of Masechet Peah, Perek Vav Mishnah Zayin. Over here, we're going to focus in this Mishnah on standing grain that can yield two Seah. Right. So we said we saw before a bundle that has two Seah is not considered shikha. The owner is allowed to go back and retrieve it. Over here, we're going to speak about standing grain. And over here, it's not going to actually yield two Seah, but it has the potential to yield two Seah. How do we view this standing grain in his field? Kamash yesh ba sa'atayim, ushchaha ena shikha. En ba sa'atayim, aval re'uya hi la'asot sa'atayim, afilu hi shel tofiach, ro'in ota ki'ilu hi anava shel se'odin. So if we have standing grain that has sa'atayim, so we have to remember that standing grain is also obligated in shikha, the same way a bundle is, right? Standing grain is as well. Harambam learns it b'shachachta omer basadeh lo tashuv lekachto. Over here, the whole pasuk isn't mentioned in Harambam. I would say the diuk is actually from the word sadeh, right? Shachachta omer basadeh. If it's in the field, right? It doesn't have to even be a bundle. It had that. And so if it's sa'atayim and he forgets it, that's not considered shikha. In basa'atayim, let's say it doesn't have sa'atayim, it's less than that. Okay, so that should be shikha. But over here, re'uyahi la'asot sa'atayim. It should produce sa'atayim. So maybe this year just wasn't a healthy crop, and that's why it's not producing sa'atayim. So if that's the case, afilu hi shel tofiach, even if it's tofiach is vetchling, right? It's a cheaper grain. It looks similar to barley, but it's not as good as barley. So Harambam even says over here, even if it's tofiach itself, right? We're going to see it, we look at it as if it is barley. So we view this field, this produce, this crop, even though it's not a great crop, even though it's vetchling, we're going to say, if this was over here barley and it would have produced sa'atayim, I'm allowed to go back and retrieve this even smaller amount. Let's say it comes out to a se'ah and a half. He's allowed to go back and do that. Now, I'll just point out that Rambam sets up this case where it's actually tofiach. It's actually vetchling, and we're treating it as if it's a different crop. We're treating it as if it's barley, and if it was barley, it would have produced the right amount, it would have produced sa'atayim, and therefore you're allowed to go back and retrieve it. I would just say that's not agreed upon by everyone. The Yerushalmi's words are ro'ina teshidufot ki'ilu hen meleot. We see the I would say the shidufot are the weaker, right? The thinned out grain as if they were meleot, as if they were full. And Harambam says that we look at the vetchling as if it was barley. Bartenura, though, explains it very differently, and he says we're not going to explain it's talking about two different crops, but rather we're talking about a thinned out barley, a cheaper barley. We look at it as if it would have been a whole full barley. But he's not going to say it's vetchling to barley. Harambam is very clear that over here he's talking about, we look at vetchling itself, tofiach itself, as if it was barley.